Hi everyone, I'm going to update you on the most recent dyslexia support group meeting that was hosted by Lisa Feltzer. It was held at the YMCA in Baxter Village in Fort Mill, South Carolina. It was from 6:30 to 8 o'clock and was a good turnout. The meeting was a little bit different than the first one. In this meeting, it was more of question and answer among parents. Our first meeting was a lot of questions on legislature. So this was a great meeting to really talk to other parents, find out what's going on, get some resources, discuss some of the hurdles that some of you are experiencing within your school districts. So I just want to reiterate that dyslexia is classified as a specific learning disability under IDEA. If you have a Wright's Law book, which I have spoken about many times, this is the Wright's Law book. If you do not have it, I highly suggest getting it. If that is not in your budget right now, they also have a website, WRIGHTS is how you spell rights, and it's law, L-A-W. You can get a lot of information on the website as well. But the IDEA for specific learning disability that does discuss dyslexia can be found in this book on pages 55 and 194, so you can read it yourself and you can highlight it. If you are having any kind of pushback from the schools, you can bring it in and show them the law. So it's very helpful. We discussed in the meeting a lot of parents who were suspecting dyslexia for their children as a diagnosis were a little unsure of how to get that diagnosed. The schools in South Carolina are not equipped to diagnose our children with dyslexia at the moment because there is nothing in place at a state level for screening or for, even for training teachers how to teach that. So there is no screening in place within our school district. So if there's no screening in place, they're definitely not going to be able to diagnose dyslexia. So then what? What do you do? So right now, currently, again, since the schools are not equipped, what you can do is you can get a diagnosis from a neuropsychologist, you can get a diagnosis from a clinical educator, you can get a diagnosis from a speech-language pathologist that is trained in dyslexia. And you can also get diagnoses from licensed psychologists, again, that are trained in the field of dyslexia. And that's going to go across the board. You want all of these professionals to have training in diagnosing dyslexia. If you get an outside evaluation, which you may have to pay for, I'm just going to be honest with you, it's not going to be cheap, but that will probably be your fastest route. I know that's not what all of you may want to hear, but that is just, again, I'm just telling you the truth. It's going to be your fastest route. So if that is in your budget, or if that is something that you can set aside to eventually be in your budget, it's most likely going to be your fastest way to get that diagnosis. What you will need to do is you will need to ask the school what their criteria is. And what I mean by that is you don't want to take your child to a speech-language pathologist, pay for that service, and then come back and have the school say, oh, I'm sorry, we only accept diagnoses from a licensed psychologist or from a neuropsychologist. So make sure that you ask your IEP team or your school, if you currently do not have an IEP, what their criteria is for diagnosing this specific learning disability, and get that in writing. Whether that is through an email or it's through an actual handwritten letter, get it in writing. Now, you can have you do have the option to request an independent educational evaluation. Sometimes the school will pay for this. With that, you could possibly get a diagnosis of dyslexia. I don't want to say that that is going to work every single time because the school district has to agree that an IEE that they are going to pay for is warranted, and that isn't always the case. They don't always pay for it. So what they will say, you're definitely entitled to an IEE. You can get an IEE at any point you want, but you may have to pay for it yourself. Now, South Carolina does recognize dyslexia, and there seems to be a little bit of confusion about that because not too long ago they didn't, but they do now. They do recognize dyslexia. Now, where the confusion sometimes comes in is there's a lot of schools in South Carolina that are refusing to use the term dyslexia. They are allowed to use the term dyslexia. So there is a letter that went out. I posted this on our website, and it is also on our Facebook page. If you go to our website, you can find it under blogs, and it's really not buried yet, so you can just pull it up, print it out, bring it to your schools, bring it to your 504s, bring it to your IEPs. Well, if you have dyslexia, you should have IEP. So bring it to your IEPs. And here's what it says. It is from the state of South Carolina, the Department of Education, and we actually found out that this was in existence last night at understood.org's conference that we attended in Columbia, South Carolina. So it was a great find for us. And it is to the district superintendents, district directors, and coordinators of special education. So this goes to everybody. And it is from John Payne, Director of the Office of Special Education Services for South Carolina. And it is dated December 15th, 2015, so it's very recent. I'm not going to read you the entire letter because you're fully capable of doing that yourselves, but I do just want to read the highlighted part that I have here, which is specific to this ongoing problem that a lot of parents are having with the schools actually using the terminology of dyslexia. Now, I did say in my last blog post that a lot of parents are comfortable with the schools just using another term because as long as their children are getting the help that they need, they don't care what it's being called. And I generally agree with that. However, there is a big movement for schools to say the word. And I'm really starting to agree with that because I think until you say it, it almost doesn't exist. And now that we have this lovely letter, we can start to be more proactive in getting the schools to use the correct terminology. So the highlighted part does state, it is important to note that nothing in IDEA or state regulation, policies, or procedures prohibit the use of the terms in IDEA evaluation, eligibility determinations, or IEP documents. In addition, as outlined in IDEA and South Carolina State Board of Education regulation, a specific learning disability includes dyslexia and other similar conditions, so your dysgraphia, your dyscalculia, as a perceptual disability that may qualify a child for services under the IDEA as long as the child has been evaluated and found eligible using the criteria listed. So, what does that mean? That means that there is nothing written anywhere that states that schools are not allowed to use this term. So if they are not using the word dyslexia and your child has been diagnosed with dyslexia, you need to hand this across the table to your IEP team and educate them and advocate that they start using the term dyslexia. So I just wanted to really point that out. Anyone who has a diagnosis of dyslexia or is starting to go down that route needs to print this letter out, have it with you, put it in your binders, bring it to your IEP meetings. Chances are, and I'm just giving the benefit of the doubt here, because I do believe that our teachers are incredibly amazing people and are really doing all they can to help our children, but oftentimes their hands are tied at a state level. They may not even know this exists. So you may be teaching them something as well. So, I just wanted to point that out. Now, if they, again, are refusing, the refusals, we can't use this term, we can't diagnose dyslexia. Well, we know you can't diagnose dyslexia, but if they're refusing to use the proper terminology, or they're telling you again that so-and-so school district, whichever one that you're in, is not does not recognize dyslexia, because this is actually still happening in South Carolina, again, get it in writing. Put it in writing. I don't care if it comes via email or, again, handwritten. Get it in writing. Every single thing needs to be put in writing. And I'm going to reiterate what I had stated on the last video blog. Tape record your IEP meetings. It's not an aggressive move. It's not something that would be considered rude. It is a running record for you. And it's a great way for you to make sure that what was said was said. Now, we also discussed in the meeting reading programs. If your child is diagnosed with dyslexia, they are entitled to be taught a scientifically research-based program. What does that mean? Well, the bad news is anybody can put out a reading program, stamp, scientifically proven on the side of it. That does not mean that it is a scientifically research-based program specific to dyslexia. So if they are giving you a reading program or your child a reading program, it needs to be specific to dyslexia, and there needs to be scientifically research-based material to back that up. So you need to ask to see that research material. That is your right. That is your child's right. Because oftentimes schools, especially in South Carolina, since dyslexia is really starting to become a bigger issue and they may not be fully prepared to handle it at the present moment, they are still using reading programs that are not effective for children that have dyslexia. For instance, Reading Recovery, which is used in the Fort Mill School District and many other school districts in the surrounding area, is not a good option for children that have dyslexia. You can look it up. I urge you to look it up. Print that information. Bring it with you to the IEP meetings. If your child is receiving Reading Recovery and he or she has a diagnosis of dyslexia, they may be making minimal to no progress. So you need to make sure that they are instituting a program that is specifically designed for your child. I'm going to give you 3 programs. I'm sure those of you who have children with this diagnosis are very well aware of them, but those of you who may be new, I'm just going to read them off, so I'm sorry if I'm repeating. One is the Wilson Reading Program. Another one is the Gillingham program, and the third, and I just learned about this last night at the understood.org conference, is Spire Reading Program, and it's SPIRE, so you can look that up. And I talked for a good 20 minutes, I have her name right here, to Ann Witten. She has a master's in education, and she was on the panel last night at understood.org in Columbia, South Carolina, answering questions. She runs the Aiken Learning Lab in Aiken, South Carolina, and she is specific to children with dyslexia and various reading and learning disabilities. And she was telling me how she has had great success with this specific program, Spire. So I came home and I looked it up, and it's a multi-sensory approach to reading, and it looks absolutely wonderful. So it's worth your while to at least look into it and research it a little bit, because it may be a good option for your child. I do also want to say that Ann Witten was also a member of the 2012 South Carolina Dyslexia Task Force that worked so hard to get South Carolina to eventually recognize dyslexia. So she's an incredible resource to have spoken with, and I was very fortunate to get that time with her. And then last note, train teachers. So let's just say, your child has dyslexia diagnosed. We need a reading program. They say, okay, well, we're going to give you Wilson Reading Program. We're going to give you the Orton Gillingham. We're going to give you Spire. make sure that the teachers that they are using are trained teachers. There has been some problems with schools implementing, and none that I know specifically or I have heard of specifically. So this isn't towards any one's particular district, but there has been cases of parents that have had these wonderful programs available for their children, and yet their children are making almost no progress. And it turns out that the schools are not using trained teachers specific to those programs to teach their children. So it's really, it doesn't make any sense. If you have one of these programs that are put into place, one of these reading programs, call either, if it's a Wilson program, call Wilson and say, I would like a list of your certified teachers to teach this program, and check that. See if that person who is teaching your child is on that list. If he or she is not, then you need to go back to the school and you need to have them get a certified teacher, because even though I'm sure that that one teacher is fantastic, there is a method to teaching these programs, which I'm sure many of you are well aware. And if you just have a teacher who is not trained in this methodology, you are not going to see the results that your child deserves, and your child is going to continue to either make little to no progress or even slide backwards as time marches on. So that was pretty much the meeting. It was just a lot of back and forth, getting to hear each other's stories and kind of figuring out where to go from here in regards to getting the schools really to get on board with helping our children, recognizing the disability, and saying the name dyslexia. And the bottom line is at the conference that I'm actually going to do another web blog on this conference last night. There's just so much information. I'm still trying to sort it all out so I can get it to you guys in a organized fashion. We're not going to be able to move forward. Nothing's going to change unless everybody gets on board and everybody really starts to insist and advocate for our children. Nothing changes with silence. So we really need to keep doing what we're doing, keep advocating, keep insisting the best for our children, and expecting more from our schools and our school district that serve our children. So I just really want to put that out there. All of you are amazing and wonderful advocates for your children. I'm impressed on a daily basis. We just got to keep this momentum going, and I really think that South Carolina is moving in the right direction, and we will, I feel, very soon get to our goal. Okay, well, I will be back, like I said, with the conference that we attended last night, and after the next dyslexia support group meeting. I believe it is the next Thursday. Don't hold me to it, but I will post that either on our Facebook page. Actually, I'll do it in both. I'll post it on our Facebook page, and I'll post it on our website as well. If you have any questions, email us, message us. Those of you who message us know that we're very, very good with getting back to you. And if not, I'll see you when I see you.